Hey, so today I'm excited to bring you a special episode where you're going to get to hear from one of my amazing stressless eating clients. Now, I've told you before that I am not here to persuade you or convince you or try to sell you on the fact that the diet mentality is the real problem here, and that the journey that I believe all women need to go on to create their freedom only comes when you take the time to heal your relationship with food and your body and yourself. So instead, I'm just going to let you hear it from women who have been where you are and have been locked inside their own food and body and shame prisons, and they've come out on the other side victorious. I'll let you hear it from them and see it through their eyes. And remember, this is a pretty big deal for these gals to share their journey because remember, this topic tends to carry around a lot of weight and a lot of shame. And in these case study interviews, they do not hold back. Like, they share the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. I'm talking their fears, their struggles, their skepticism, all of it. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. All right, we are live and we are here with the amazing Julie. And Julie is one of the, the brave, courageous souls that has agreed to come on here and share her truths about her experiences. And among other reasons, I really wanted everyone to hear Julie's perspective of this journey, the before, the during, the after, because she has, had her own limiting beliefs about what was possible for her. She might defy some of the stereotypes of what you all think it looks like or feels like to have this struggle. And I really wanted to have her just speak into that. So first of all, hello, Julie.
Hello.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for being here with us. I'm like, you can tell, guys, I have conversations with my head inside my head all the time. Thank you. We are so excited as I'm like turning my head to the right and turning to the left, talking to
everyone.
Exactly. We collectively, all the voices in my head and everyone listening are happy that you're here. So thank you in advance from all of air quotes us. But, before we dive in, just kind of want to share, where you were, like paint the picture for us. Where were you before we met? Like, what was your life like? What was your relationship with food like? What was your relationship with your body like? What was that internal self-talk like? Like, where were you in your journey before you got started with working with me?
Well, I am in my early 40s. So I've had a long life of just working hard and having goals and getting there. And I'm married. I have 3 kids. They're all about to hit the teenage realm. So they're older, and I've kind of gone through the just ups and downs of like college, gaining some weight and then losing it, and babies gaining some weight and losing it, and just kind of that roller coaster of like what I could control, what I couldn't control, all of those pieces, and just building a narrative in my head that was just very, control is really the only word I have, controlling of what I could eat, how much I had to exercise, and what my end goal would be. And it was not a realistic goal. And it always left me with that, like, well, if I get really serious, I can do it this time. If I just didn't let myself go, I could still fit in those jeans. Or it was just kind of like that carrot that was so close, but I couldn't get there. And so I blamed myself for it, and my self-discipline or lack of self-discipline, my just not wanting it enough, or my body is just genetically disposed to just hate me and it's only going to get worse. Just a lot of like catastrophizing. And so when I first heard your podcast, it was the first time where I was like, wow, what would it be like to not think about food all the time? What would it be like to kind of have all that energy somewhere else? And I think I realized just how tired I was, just how weary I was from just that constant loop in my head. And I think I really worried about, was I passing that loop on to my children? I have 1 daughter, especially. So I just felt stuck in a loop of like getting off track, getting back on track, then getting off track, feeling shame. Here we go again. Like just that same, like all the diets I tried, all the books I read, I was like, I can do it this time. It was just a very it was all about me being strong enough. And it just always felt like I wasn't. And then it was just that just defeat after every time trying. And then, but on the outside, looking like I had it all together, people would be like, that girl, she is good. She can do anything she sets her mind to. And so I was hearing these different like conversations, people thinking one way about me, and then my head just painting a whole different picture and just beating myself up about how they didn't really know the real me and I couldn't let anyone know and just all those pieces. So I think just overall, I remember you asking me on the first call, like, how are you? And I was like, I'm weary. Like that was the only word I could put to it. Cause I just was like, I don't want to do 40 more years like this. Like So long way to say, like, I was very tired.
Yeah, for sure. And so many really important things that you said, but touching on the last thing, and I'll come back to some of the other things that you said, being weary, one of the things for you that you were weary about, it was also this conversation of like, I don't want to go down this road again of getting my hopes up, of thinking that something's going to change or something's going to be different or that I'm going to change when I've been living like this for 40 years. So it was almost that like skeptic weariness. Can you kind of speak to that?
Yes. I think obviously every step I took, I was intrigued. Like, I heard the podcast and it was like, go to the website. And I went to the website and every time I'm like, well, when's the shoe going to drop? Like, when's she going to tell me what the one piece that won't work for me? Like, I just kept waiting. And then I got all the way to like schedule a phone call. And I was like, if I do this, like, I'm going to have to really make a decision. Like, she's going to ask me things. And then the whole time you were talking, you were just like, do you believe it can change? And I really was like, I don't know, because I don't know what it could look like otherwise. Like, I can't say yes because I don't want to. I was done pretending. I was done pretending to be the person who was like, of course, I got this. And I really was like, how do I say yes to something when I have no idea what it could feel like, what it could look like on the other side? So it took me just being like, okay, Leanne works with me's all the time. She knows my personality type. She is willing to invest and look to see if I'm a good fit. So I just have to trust that time will be different. And I just really felt like spiritually I was led to this too. Like I was just like, you know what? Like all of me trying to control it didn't work. So this sounds totally different and I just have to believe in something.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of skepticism. And I always fear that whole like, well, I'm going to be your first failure, Leanne. Like, I don't want you to have your stat of like 6,523 in one. Like that would be so sad for you and for me. But I think I had to that was limiting beliefs. All the things we learned in the program, I realized was holding me back and couldn't put words to it at that point. But yeah.
Yeah, it's so, as you're speaking to, I guarantee you the voice in so many women's heads of like, first of all, it's like, well, wait a minute. And I ask everybody this, like, are you ready to actually heal your relationship with food, heal your relationship with your body, really change that narrative in your head, And most women, they want to say yes, but they're just like, wait, Leanne, I've been doing this my entire life. You're telling me that first of all, I don't even know what that looks like. I don't even comprehend what that could be without tangibly like putting my hands on it, right? It feels like a concept that's out of reach to us when all we've known is the opposite, right? Yeah. But then there's that voice in our head of like, well, great. Yeah, even if I say yes, I'm going to be the one person this doesn't work for because I've witnessed myself time and time again, trying all the things and trying on all these different plans and programs. And I'm the common denominator, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm always like, hey, then that being said, like, are you ready to start at the self-image and really earn back your own trust and become the version of yourself? And I never like skipped over your skepticism. I'm like, let's actually speak to that,
Good.
And that's what's, really important for anybody that's listening. Like, I joking, Julie and I talk about it. I was like, I think you were one of the bigger skeptics, and I'll never come from a place of trying to persuade you or convince you that this is the right path for you. Like, you have to know it in your spirit. And that's why we went through it. We talked about it. Like, we even got off the phone and you went and had conversations with yourself, your husband, all of that. Because again, I don't want it. There's no persuasion. You have to become ready to take responsibility. And you did, and you came back and you're like, you were ready. And the other thing that you mentioned is this idea that like from the outside looking in, it looked like you had it all together, like this successful career, successful wife, successful mom, all these things, happy, like on the outside, like giving off that perception. And generally in so many ways of your life, you were. That's so common for my clients. Like, hey, I'm happy. This is the elephant in the room. This is the one area that's robbing me of that. And one other thing is that like a lot of people think, that this is a struggle or a type of suffering that only happens to people that are like overweight, out of shape, all that. And like you told me on the first call, you're like, Leanne, I'm not overweight. I don't have that much weight to lose. Like, I mean, yeah, there's some weight I want to lose, but like, this is not about your body. This was not about, can you speak to that? Like, what was this about for you? If it wasn't, you knew it wasn't about your body anymore, but like, what was it about?
And I think a lot of this I figured out, like, obviously through going through all the steps and modules. But I think the biggest thing was I just could never admit that I was enough, that what I had done, like, I didn't have to keep striving for that next thing. And to me, I had achieved a ton of milestones. Like, I finished my doctorate, and then it was like, okay, now you have a terminal degree. What are you going to do with your life? There was nothing else to strive for. There's the next promotion, the next, like, I'm kind of like at a point where I can be happy in my career and stay in this position forever if I wanted to. And it's like, why do I still feel so discontent? And why is the voice in my head so angry at my, like, and critical, like, when I've done all these amazing things? And I think it came down to, like, it is like, I decided in my head that was the one thing that still I didn't have, or didn't have control over, was the food and loving my body. And so I just was like, I got to figure out a way to just know that I'm enough. Like, I'm a mess, but I'm enough. Like, I'm growing and I'm working towards things, and I need to be in the present. And I can't just keep waiting for me to feel like, okay, you're down one size, you're good. Like, and I feel like that's where I came to put value and identity, was just because I didn't know what else to measure against. And that's what I've been doing for 30 years, because I've been trying to get to this point. Yeah. And there is no point. And I think, I mean, we're living each day, and I couldn't figure out how to do that and be in the joy and the happiness of everything. So.
Yeah, and you're saying like, hey, I'm a mess. Like, life is messy. We are all a mess. It's like, who are we in the face of all of that messiness and that rawness? Can we keep it real, you know? And when we move to that self-judgment and that self-condemnation in the midst of just being human, that's when we really suffer. And I think so many women, I know this was the case for me too. I was like, oh, when I lose the weight, then I'll be happy. When I get the career, then I'll be happy. The relationship, fill in the blank, right? But it's like, no, everywhere you go, there you'll be. And that not enoughness. And it's not that your body changed. It's not that the food changed. It's your thoughts about your body change. It's your thoughts about food, your thoughts about yourself change. We just changed the way you think and the way you see your world. And we started at the identity. It's like, who do you want to be? How do you want to weigh and measure yourself? How do you want to trust yourself? Cool. Let's go earn it back. Let's stop practicing the old and practice something new, rather than just talk about, we don't want to practice the old, because in turn that makes us more of it, you know?
Yes.
And it wasn't throw away the baby with the bathwater. You had done so much work on yourself. We got to just extract what was working and what you did love, and stop practicing the pieces of you that weren't, and then just fill in the blanks with the ways of being and really ways of thinking that would allow you to show up in that way. And I think you're speaking to so many women, because it's not about the weight. It's not about having it all together. It's about, how do you feel when you have it all, you know? Yeah. Do you feel like you have it all? And most women don't. Right. It's like, I'm living in this world of quiet desperation. Why? And it's because the losing the weight as your measuring stick, and having the career and having the family and letting that equate to happiness, that's the cosmic joke. Because if you're not who you need to be to enjoy it, you won't enjoy it.
Right. Yeah.
And you got it. Yeah. I love it. So let me ask you this. How has your life changed as a result of enrolling in this program?
Well, I think mainly I was able to very early on draw a line in the sand and say, this is who I want to be, and this is what I want to leave behind. And I told you, like, on our final call, I was like, I didn't really look at that throughout the whole thing. Like, I was just like, I wrote it, and then we really started looking at it again towards the end of the program. And like, when I wrote it, I felt like it was so ambitious and so crazy. And so, like, I'm just going to write it all down, and it will, I mean, again, the skeptic, I was like, okay, like a full page of things I was letting go, and a full page of things I was going to grasp onto. And like, now I read it and I'm like, well, yeah, obviously, like, and it just seems so like, how could I live another way? And so it's just, I don't, like I told you before we got on the call, like, I had a ridiculous morning, and there was some yelling at my daughter and frustration about rain and not being able to ride bikes to school. And my mom is very sick. And so helping her out, and my husband, I just exploded on him. And I was joking, like, he's like, he thinks this was a good investment, but he doesn't think like that. But I was able to like identify ways to pull myself out of it. It wasn't like the day was lost. I'm not an all or nothing thinker anymore. And I think that is for my personality type. A lot of times I'd just be like, well, the day's already gone. Let's just eat this, or let's just get in my bed and take a 5-hour nap because I can't do that today. I'll start again tomorrow. Like, and I think that's where I've changed, where I can have a bad moment, but it doesn't define my whole day or my week or just my year. And having a bad moment with my daughter doesn't make me a bad mom. Like, I just don't go to the like big, jump off point every time. And I think that's what it taught me about, was just like, we're humans, like, have some grace. And again, you are enough. And you are doing the best you can in that moment. Doesn't mean you don't have to ask for forgiveness later. It doesn't mean you don't hope that things are different the next time around, but you can work towards just being like, okay, it's just a moment and it's over and we can move on.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing reality into this conversation, because that's one of the things I say. I mean, you've heard me from day one. Every time I say it, I'm like, ladies, you are going to have bad days, bad moments. You're going to have like crap is going to hit the fan. Things are going to like curveballs are going to hit you. And it's not a matter of that stopping. I think a lot of personal development and like change yourself, and even the weight loss world, it like sets you up for life to be successful inside of this very controlled bubble. And we don't live and operate in that bubble. And so then what happens is the bubble gets burst and we're like, great. First of all, I don't even know how to deal with it. And then we feel like, oh, I'm a self-sabotager. This is what I do. And it's like, no, what if from the very beginning, we set you up for the reality that life is going to happen to you, that life gets messy. You've got 3 teenagers, a husband, a job, I see a dog in the background. Like, it's all
Sorry, chewing on a bone, so she'll be quiet.
There you go. Exactly. And it's not that this stuff ever happens. It's like, who do you want to be in the face of it? So not only did you, realize like, wow, that's not who I want to be. And now you also have the communication tools to go back to your husband and be like, hey, you know what? I just want to really own what just happened. And this is what was going through my brain, because you're now emotionally available to yourself. Right. Yeah. And what you also said, you're like, I didn't drive through Chick-fil-A. Like a few months ago, I would have just totally taken it out and said, screw it, and gone through Chick-fil-A, even though Chick-fil-A sandwiches are delicious. Let's be honest.
They are. But
Right. So it's like none of this stuff just goes away. We have to prepare ourselves for reality. And that's one of the things that I'm just so adamant about in this program is like, ladies, we are humans. Let's learn how to human as a verb. You know what I mean? Like it's a world of humaning, and we need to figure out how to, but also like me too. I show up as the not so gracious version of myself. And that's when I need more grace, not more self-loathing and self-criticism and self-rejection. And that's where we are just totally flipping the script,
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that dose of reality to this conversation,
Well, and I think you have said before, like, therapy is amazing, and, we should all have our moments with therapists if that's what you choose, but that we don't have to, I didn't, as a busy mom and working person, I just didn't have time to wait 5 years to get through all this baggage of, oh, my mom made me clean my plate, or I didn't ever see my parents exercise, or, all the things that like informed my identity. Like, I need to do the work now and investigate on how I can be better, in a few months, because I don't want to wait to start living my life. Like, I've already waited a long time. So I think it is such a good compliment or standalone, investment in yourself, even if you do have a therapist, or you do have, a community group, or you do have places where you do get to grow. Like, this is like down and dirty. Like, I'm going to figure out some stuff that maybe then you can talk more about in therapy. I don't know. Yeah. But for me, it was like, I'm a go-getter type A. And I'm like, I need to know, I need it all laid out. I need to know what I need to do, and I'll get at it. And so for me, that was why this program was really perfect.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that, first of all. And that was me too. Like, I did all the therapy, all the things, and I got very clear, and I was very well versed at psychoanalyzing, like, why I had all my daddy issues,
Right.
I jokingly say, like, I say this to my dad because now we're great, but I jokingly say, I'm like, Dad, I wrote my first book about you. Like, it's just like we get very clear, and we go down this ditch, but what all it does is it perpetuates the old narrative, and we get really more focused on the problem versus it's like, no, let's get the tools, let's get the solutions. Like, one of the questions I have sometimes with my clients is like, they'll talk to me about some really old wound that they're noticing show up and they're like, I want to just know why. And I'm like, would you rather know why, or would you rather just like squash it right now and like not bring it with you into your future? And it's like, cool. Cause if that's the case, we have the tools.
Yeah.
So it's this future oriented, like it's present and future oriented rather than just like totally psychoanalyzing the past, which we've done enough of. We've done that to death. We've beat that horse,
Yeah.
So we don't need to do it anymore. So I love that you brought that up. So why was this different than any of the other programs that you've done, and why was this more successful than anything that you've done? Because again, you've done a lot of work.
I love self-help. I love all the, I still listen to a ton of podcasts and I read a ton of books and blogs and things like that. So, I knew all the right things to do. I just couldn't get there. I just didn't have the foundation. I think that's what I've told you before. So I think all of the work we did in this program gave me words to all the struggles I was having, or all the reasons why that became hard, or I couldn't bounce back, or I just, like, there's a ton of diagrams, which I love diagrams, and it would be like this to this, and then you could go to these two places, and I'm like, oh yeah, I do that all the time. And it just presented it in a way that really allowed me to just put myself into it. It wasn't about someone else. It was about me. And I think that was just all the work is like, okay, now you take some time and write like how this works. And then you build and build and build. And so it doesn't seem like you're solving this mammoth problem because you're doing it in these tiny steps. And I think that's why, that's why it was different, I think. But also, I think it was more successful because it wasn't about food. Everything else I've ever done is just always the focus is about food. And it's like the big joke that, like, we don't really ever talk about food. We do not talk about food, like on any call, like, you get like almost to the end of the program and it's like, do you want to talk about some food? And I think that is just, it seems funny, like having been through the whole program, or like weird if you haven't been through, but it's so refreshing because you're like, I make decisions about food because of all these other things. And I would have made a decision 6 months ago to go to Chick-fil-A today because I had a bad morning, where I'm like, that doesn't even really sound good. Like, I kind of just want to like have some mindfulness and breathe and, like some different ways for me to get back on track. So it just gave me so many more tools than just what you see in the world. Like self-care is all of these things, but this is like proactive self-care.
For sure.
Actually, like you're going to feel better.
Yeah.
Not just kick the can down the road. And I think that is why it's different. And I also loved that it focused so much on your inner voice and just like what you're saying to yourself. And that is my biggest weakness, I think, just beating myself up all the time. And I just got to like be like, why, like just get mad at my inner voice and just be like, why have I let this inner voice take over for so long? And just really, just spend like, it's self-paced. So you can spend as much time on whatever part really resonates with you. And that was a part that I just had to say, what are the beliefs around, letting this voice take over, and, where did that come from? And I think it's scripted in a way that it keeps you on track, but you make it so unique for yourself. And I think that is why it works. And yeah, there's a timeline and whatever, but I don't know. You're not like, there's no pressure. It's just like, you want to do it because you're starting to see so much progress so quickly. From the first few weeks, you're like, wow, where's that been? And you just have words to speak to so many different things. And that's how it resonated with me. So
I love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I was giggling when you said like, where's the food stuff? Because people come to me and they think that food is the biggest struggle in their world. And it feels like it because we've been focusing on it and trying to control it so long. But ironically, the more we try to control it, the more out of control we feel. But it's just such front of mind awareness and takes up so much time and space and energy. We can't imagine it, A, not being about the food, or B, a world where we don't think about the food, And so within the first 6 weeks of the program or of the first 6 modules, like I give you little distinctions that will set you up for success with the food. But I always say, I'm like, if you get all this other stuff sorted and identified and reconciled, the food stuff becomes so simple. Like we definitely still need a new framework and system of thinking around. And again, it's not the food, it's about changing our thoughts about the food, and it's changing our thoughts about how we relate to the food. And when you do that and you have this new system of thinking, the food stuff just becomes simple and it clicks. And people are like, but Leanne, like in the beginning, when are we going to talk about the food? When are we going to talk about the food? And I'm like, we already are. We're just, the food is not the thing. You know, food is one of the things being influenced, but it's all these other things too. So yeah, I giggle because I mean, I was that person too. I'm like, talk to me about the food. And it's like, no, we don't have a food problem. Food is the symptom of what's going on higher up in the brain, what's going on higher up in the self-image. And then also it's a symptom, like any overeating for the most part is really just an effect of the diet mentality and restriction. So I love that you brought that up, and I'm glad that it was pretty simple after that, you know?
Well, and I think so many programs or just, I mean, diets or whatever, like you spend so much time trying to figure out that number, like how many calories can I have? How many macros can I have? How many this? And like, it was just so nice to not have to log my food or log, you know, like it was just like, wow, I have so much time. Like, I don't even know what to do. And like, there's no perfect number for all of that. And so, yeah. And I think you do talk about a lot of different types of ways of eating and things you've tried and experiments. And I think that's like, to just not be afraid of any part of food because it's just food. It doesn't have power. And I think that is the thing that you sprinkle throughout the program. It's not just in module 6, but just take your power back. Like that is not something it's not something to be afraid of. And I think I just have lived so long afraid of letting myself go or eating the wrong things, or just, if I let myself have that one piece of candy, it's going to be the whole bag. I mean, I just not trusting myself. And
absolutely. Yeah.
Instead of focusing on that, we build trust just in all our promises, not just about food, just everything in your life. Like, so you just learn the bigger lesson, and it can relate to food, but it's not about food.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you said taking your power back, because we give so much power and weight, pun intended, you know, to the food, to our weight, to our bodies, to our thoughts. And we realize like, oh, I can actually even take the power back from my thoughts. Like that is a game changer, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, so cool. And it's funny that you say that too, because like so many you've been on the calls when people are like, wow, I feel this freedom around food, but like, when's Leanne going to tell me to start counting or weighing or measuring? I'm like, no, I'm never. If I ever, like, you will never hear me say that. And if anybody ever does, like, go in the opposite direction. Like, that is not part of this. Like, it's about it's about not needing portion control and calorie counting and all that. It's like listening to your body, listening to your heart, listening to your brain, learning a new system of thinking around food, so that, like you said, food can just be food.
Right.
Yeah, I love it. Why do you think it was worth it to invest this time around, like in getting the help that you actually needed, rather than going down that weight loss road some more, or just even for you, like listening to more podcasts and gaining more information?
I think I had to really identify that I have more of a servant heart, where I invest in other people. I invest in my staff. I invest in my kids. I invest in my husband. And I'm always looking for the best way to grow them. And you just, as you get older as a woman, I feel like women more than men just kind of forget that they should invest in themselves. And so this was the first time in a long time where I was like, is it worth it? Like, and it was like me just saying, yes, I am worth it. Like, I spend all this time and money on all these other things, but what do I want to get out of this? So I just think it was a decision that I was like, I'm not going to live the second half of my life the same way I've lived the first. Even though it's been great, I'm not going to live mentally the same way. I'm going to have that freedom. And I just, best decision.
Amazing. Yeah. Can you speak to also, like, you were like a self-proclaimed information junkie? Like, there's pain in knowing that you're so educated and not able to bring it to life, like that gap. Can you just be like, what was that like for you to know that you knew so much, but like you didn't have the tools to bring it to think, I
think there was always a quote that like, I can't even remember the quote, but it's like, you can't outrun how you act in the kitchen or something, like, cause I'm a big runner. So I'd always be like, well, if I can run longer, if I can run a few more miles, then I can, have dessert, or I can have this. And it just became this big math game to me. And then I would read all about intuitive eating and this, and I'm like, I don't even know how to start. Like, I just couldn't even put the pieces together. Cause I really thought it was so much about just self-control in food. Like, if I could just be better at that, then I could do all these other programs. And they always worked, in the program. And I think I gave this example on a call, but I've tried to meal plan forever. And like, it took this program to be like, just small, minimal additions. Like, okay, I'm going to do it for 1 week. I don't have to plan out the next 3 months of my life, like, and then decide I don't like any of those meals. Like, let's just do 1 week. And like, I've been doing it for 4 months now. And like, my kids are like, oh, there's the plan. Like, they just know. And it was like, I just couldn't. I've listened to 1,000 podcasts on meal planning, and I just couldn't make it happen. And it was you teaching us in a module that like, you need to add on gradually. Like, you just can't go, gangbusters. Like, you have to just like tiny wins. And that was just huge. So I think,
ironically, I never teach about meal planning. I just taught you how to think differently in your entire world. And you put that in, you integrated that into meal planning, and now it works. Like, it's funny because I was like, oh, I don't teach about meal planning, but that's why it's so transferable. It's a life, like it's a curriculum for life.
So I have all these things that I've learned a ton about that I could never put in place. And I think like, as I, just as I keep going, like, I'll just be like, oh, like now I think I could do that, or I should look into that again. And I kind of have the mentality to be able to make it successful, because that piece is what was missing. It's just kind of that, like
that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I'm like, what else is on your list?
I know. Like,
let's talk.
Yeah.
Like ideas we need to bring to life. No. That is so cool. That is so cool. Yeah. So what would you say to any woman that is on the fence? So like, there's a couple things, like women on the fence about like their decision to heal the struggle, thinking like, no, I need another diet, or I need to lose weight first and then I'll heal it. Also the women that are on the fence, because they were just like you, they're like, well, I'm actually not overweight. Like, is this really that big of a problem? But also the women that are on the fence that are like, no, I mean, I am so unhelpable. I've been like this for so long. Any woman that's on the fence about actually taking the time and energy to heal this and just take a few months and put it to bed for good and have the tools and systems of thinking that they can use as a lifelong way of living, what would you say to any woman that's in that position?
I would say, if you're even at the point of listening to this call, like, you don't waste any more time. I mean, you have gotten this far, and you're not unhelpable because you can see positives from just what you learned so far. You're not overweight, so you really need it. Like, there's something happening in your brain that is propelling you to be like, I have a problem, and I'm tired and I don't want to do this anymore. Just listen to yourself. Like, it's just like, take that next step and just trust that you are here for a reason, and that this program was created for a reason. And it is, like Leanne said, I was the biggest skeptic. I was like, am I worth it? Do I, will I really finish? I didn't finish a lot of things in the past. I would start a lot of things and then just be like, well, it didn't work. So I'm like, well, if I invest this time and money, like, I need to know, like, I'm going to actually do it, because I didn't trust myself. I started so many things and not finished. And I didn't want this to be another failure and just add it to the list. And so, but there was something in me that was just like, yes, this is different, and Leanne's different, and she's not going to let me fail. Like, that's just what I kept telling myself. Like, she's not, because she said if I committed, she would commit, and we would make this work. And so I think it's just, you can read a million books, you can listen to all the things, but until you start doing the work internally about you aren't going to get there. And like, I mean, I am not, I'm not now like, oh, I match what people think, I have it all together. Like, I know I might still have those days where I have to quiet the voice, or I have to be like, I didn't drink any water today, I don't feel good. Like, let's go and have some water because that's my recipe for success because that makes my body happy. But I think you just learn all of those pieces, and that is what makes this program different. It is not about a number on the scale. It is not about fitting in that size of jeans. It is not about on the Facebook, oh my gosh, I lost 60 pounds in 3 days. And you're like, really? Because they're not learning why those 60 pounds came on. They're not learning about just how to live their life after that's over. So I just don't think this isn't an outcome-based program. It is it's not I have one goal-based program. It is going to change every part of your life. And I think that's what makes it worth it. Just things I just keep realizing about myself. And I think it's just I could go through all the modules again and learn even more. And I want to, just now that I have this awareness, you can have more awareness. The women who you get to talk to on the calls each week are so encouraging. You just don't feel alone, and you don't feel like it's shameful to talk about these thoughts that you have, and you get to celebrate. And that's why it's different. And that's why it's so much more than eating. And so I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but just know, I don't jump on everything. I really am thoughtful about my time and my money. And it was life-changing.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing your truth. And as you were talking too, I was like, oh, and she did it in a pandemic, and and also for you too, I feel like every step of the way, you brought your faith and your spirit into it as well, which was huge for you from the very beginning. And it was that was all about the integration too, So, well, thank you so much for sharing your truth. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off? Anything that's on your head, your heart, before not that you haven't said all the things already. I just want to, anything you want to leave off with or share.
I just want anyone who's listening just to know you are enough. And it took this program for me to really be able to say that confidently, which I just find freeing, but also sad that I had to wait this long to know that. So just even if you don't do it right now, just know this is waiting for you, and it will change your life. And it's just going to help you believe all the things that are already true. And that is the key. I think you're already beautiful. You're already just enough in all the areas. But if your brain's not telling you that you are, then nothing matters. It's exhausting. So let's fix that self-critical voice and let them celebrate you, because that's what they should be doing. Our own voices.
Oh, yes. Amen. I just got goosebumps. So good. So good. And it's just we all get sad when we know something that we didn't have before. And it's no, now we're just grateful because we get to have it now, and even you sharing your story right now is helping somebody to really wake up to their worthiness and their beauty. And so grateful for your share. Well, thank you.
No problem.
So much for your honesty. Thanks for thank you, skepticism. Thank you, not enoughness. Look who's talking now. So I love it. Thank you, Julie, for sharing your truth with us. And we just, really appreciate your heart. Yeah. Awesome. For anyone listening, signing off right now. And thanks for tuning in. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard and you're interested in breaking out of your own food, body, and diet prison, here's what I want you to do next. Head on over to stresslesseating.com. That's stresslesseating.com, and sign up to watch the Stressless Eating webinar, where I'll walk you through the exact 5-step game plan my female clients use to conquer emotional eating, self-sabotage, and finally heal themselves from the restrictive all-or-nothing diet mentality for good, but without obsessing or spending years in therapy to address it. I've laid it all out for you there in 5 easy steps. Remember, healing your relationship with food and your body does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen, and we've helped clients all over the world take back their power from the food and find true and lasting freedom, while enjoying life and warm chocolate chip cookies along the way. To see if we can help you do the same, head on over to stresslesseating.com. I'm Leanne Ellington, and I'll see you next time.